My name is Katie Eisenhower, and I'm an epidemiologist industry consultant with SAS on our customer advisory federal health team. And so hold on, we got something in the chat. Oh, okay, great, we're good. And I work to support mostly our CDC and NIH accounts to help customers learn about SAS, adopt SAS, answer questions about SAS, really anything SAS and public health I somehow end up involved in. So I'm really excited to get to share this with you today, as well as hopefully hear some about your work and how we can improve your SAS experience in the BDC. So with that, let's see. Okay, so I have had the privilege of putting together a SAS presentation project. This will be similar to some of the other projects that you have access to in the BDC. Like I know there's a Genesis tutorial. It's probably the only one I can name off the top of my head. But the idea here is to create a SAS project that is not only inviting and welcoming if maybe you don't know SAS and you're like, hey, what's the SAS thing? I want to try it out and learn this language. Or maybe you have been a SAS user and you're just using it for the first time in the BDC environment, just because it is a little bit different than using it on your desktop since it's a cloud environment. And so this project aims to answer those questions. And I'm also working on a third piece that will be like an epigenetics, bioinformatics modeling piece. That one's still under development because I am not a bioinformatician. I moonlight as a PhD student as one. So some of our SAS folks, but that's coming as well. And I would absolutely love input and thoughts on that. So if you were to go into the BDC, and I'm not sure the SAS project is live yet, but this is what it would look like, where we have some information about it. It's broken up into 3 parts. So we'll go through those as well. We've got some instructions on how to use it. And then I've got some references for the data sources that are used in part 2. And again, this is completely flexible. If you come in here to use it and you're like, nah, this is terrible, or we could use something different, I would love that feedback because the whole point of this is to be helpful to you. So the 3 parts are the introduction to the SAS language. Part 2 is still pretty basic, but I go through an example of merging and doing just a simple model with some social vulnerability index data. And then part 3 that is not there yet will be the epigenetics piece. So in part 1, which again is that introduction to the SAS syntax, I cover how to comment code, how to create a library, converting character to numeric, examples of merging data sets, and then I have an array set up that groups some ICD-9 codes, which sure, maybe you don't use ICD-9, maybe use ICD-10, but the whole idea is the code that is in the SAS project is really highly notated. And the idea is, sure, maybe you don't need this exact thing. Maybe you don't need to convert character to numeric, but maybe you need to do something similar, and you can use this as a template to help you understand the SAS code and to feel more comfortable altering it and even reading about it, right? Because especially if you're not familiar with SAS, it can be kind of daunting to get started. And so if we look at part 2, which is the social vulnerability index data, actually, let me pause for a second. Do we have any questions to this point? I cannot see the chat, so let's see. Okay, looks like no one's chatting.
Yeah, looks good.
We're good? Okay, cool. Oh, geez, go back. Okay. So going through just quickly what is in part 2, where I use the social vulnerability index data. I show how to bring the data in. The data is already pre-saved. I do just a simple procedure that shows me the contents of the data set. And again, it's really highly notated, so you can hopefully understand exactly what's happening and why, and also know how to make changes if you need to. So then I go through and I actually stack the social vulnerability index data sets together. So instead of having 4 separate ones, I make one. And then I just, for the sake of an example, I subset it by state and county. So I just do a t-test on county, and then I do a regression on the state of Alabama, looking at the poverty estimates by year. So that's what's happening in project number 2. Again, very notated. It's not necessarily the most advanced code, but the idea is to make it palatable and acceptable and inviting to maybe someone who is not familiar with SAS, and give them a comfortable place to start if you're using SAS in the BDC for the first time, because the SAS Studio environment that Brendan spoke of is what's in BDC. And it functions the exact same as a desktop license maybe you've used, but the interface looks a little different. Things are laid out just a little bit different. So, you know, it's sort of like getting in a new car where, like, sure, it drives the same, you know, the gas is still in the same place, but it's just slightly different from maybe what you're used to. And so this is to really help with that transition. And then finally, for the social vulnerability index example, I demonstrate exporting the data as a CSV within the Biodata Catalyst workspace. And so with that, that is the end of my summary of the SAS project. This is contact information for myself and Brendan, and I will take any questions that you have. We absolutely would love to hear from you. We love talking about SAS, and it's what we're here for. So we want all the feedback, all the questions, all the comments.